Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Today we're going to be looking at a kit that was requested by a friend of mine, Steve, who has a liking of this kit. So let's get started. This is a 1977 Monogram Kingfisher, otherwise known as the OS2U, built by Vought. It's kit number 5304. It was in 1/48 scale. The original molding of this kit was in 1966. It's part of a series of naval aircraft in 48 scale that Monogram had become pretty popular with. You know, they made the Hellcat, Dauntless, Avenger, Helldiver, whatnot, and this kind of rounded out some of the Navy aircraft that they were producing. So you can get a pretty good lineup of World War II naval aircraft from Monogram. So this kit here is still sealed. So I picked this up at a vintage swap meet a couple of months back, and it's still its original packaging. So this would be kind of a unique look at an untouched kit. So the Kingfisher was the main shipboard observation seaplane used by the U.S. Navy throughout World War II. You'd find it on battleships, cruisers. It was also operated by a squadron from the Marine Corps. The Coast Guard got some of these for a while, doing some coastal patrol and then some inland patrol as well too. The British Fleet Air Arm got a number of these. A few of them went to the Soviet Navy on board one of the ships that we sent to them on Lend-Lease. The Royal Australian Air Force utilized some of them as well. They picked up the ex-Dutch order. The Dutch had ordered 24 of these for the Dutch East Indies, but they got taken over by the Japanese before they could be delivered, so they ended up going to the Australian Air Force. It was also produced by the Naval Aircraft Factory. That designation was the OS2N, and that was their built version of the OS2U-3. There was also some that were issued Lend-Lease and also utilized post-war by some of the Latin American countries, such as Chile, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Mexico, Uruguay. They all got a handful of these, and a number of the current surviving Kingfishers actually come from those sources. So the Kingfisher was the brainchild of a gentleman by the name of Rex Beazle. He was one of the Vought aircraft designers. He designed also the Vindicator and the Corsair, and later on went on to do the Cutlass. It was the first production type to be assembled using spot welding, so there wasn't a lot of rivets on there, so it ended up with a fairly smooth surface. Used some unique aerodynamic tricks in order to be able to get some high lift off of this aircraft, such as deflector plate flaps and drooping ailerons. First flew in 1938 and was powered by a 450 horsepower Pratt & Whitney 485 Wasp Jr., which is what was used throughout the production series. There wasn't much changes amongst the different versions of it. There's OS2U -1, -2, and -3. The only real changes on them was the particular engine type that was used, but they still remained 450 horsepower. The -3, was able to utilize bomb racks. They could put 100-pound bombs or a pair of depth charges. The -3 also received some armor and self-sealing fuel tanks. So the Kingfisher ended up staying in service longer than its replacement. Curtiss had developed the SO3C Seamew, which turned out to have a lot of problems, and so the aircraft was pulled from the squadrons and replaced by the Kingfisher. They sent the Kingfishers back out there, and they ended up hanging around the entire war. Ultimately, they were replaced by the by the SCC Hawk, also by Curtiss, which was a single-engine aircraft. Those didn't start showing up until really late 44, like October, November. So the Kingfisher soldier on with the majority of shipborne observation all the way to the end of the war. So it's a little history of the Kingfisher. And so let's take a look at what we got here. So this is in the 70s when they went to the truth in advertising stuff that was going on in the 70s. So you've got a photograph of a completed model on here. Most kids, of course, could not build this thing as well as that, so I'm not so sure how truthful the advertising was, since this is built by a professional model builder here. But the box art, that was popular in the 50s and 60s, had pretty much disappeared by the 70s. Will later return, in the late 80s, and it's pretty prevalent nowadays. But so you got a photograph on here. This is the typical Monogram boxing of the mid-70s with this just all white box with just a photograph of the model here. So on the side, we've got some other images of the built model. We've got some alternate markings being shown on here, and also the fact that it's got wheeled landing gear available to it as well too. And you do see that there's a couple of crewmen. We've got molded in colored plastic. Details may be painted to match photos on the box. Then we got the kit number 5304 on here. It does have the -01, so I think this may have been a dollar kit when it was first originally released. That's typically what that dash represents on there. Oh, I got, you can see I paid $10 for this at the show. And we've got the kit number again on here. And similar photograph as on the cover. Then on the back, other side here, similar information again here. Monogram's address, copyright information, and a little blurb of information about the kit itself. It's molded in blue, includes pilot and gunner. Pontoon version includes dolly, cement and paint not included. And here's the other end. And there's the bottom of the box. So let's tear open into this and see what we got. It's a wrapped cellophane as opposed to the heat shrink stuff that we get today. There we go. All right. Set that aside, and let's take a look at what we got in here. Nice tight fit. It smells like a disco in here. All right, so got a few parts that have come loose, it looks like. Let's get the instructions and the decal sheet out here. So let's take a look at our instructions. Got a lot more information about the aircraft on here. Some recommendations on how to build. And beginning steps, wings, pilot. Actually got a little bit of a cockpit, which is nice, a little different. Then we've got full assembly. It looks like the wings, you're sliding through these openings on here. And looks like they've also got support cables that you could add on there if you'd want. So it looks like run sewing thread. So if you wanted to add that on there, they're actually showing you how to kind of, do a little extra. And then we've got the beaching gear and additional floats, bombs if you're going to be making that version. Then your canopy. What's nice is they got it separated in all the different sections, which is nice. Tail planes. And if you're going to build the wheeled version, they show you how to do that down here. And then on the back side here, you've got a 4-view of the different versions. You can do, here's a pre-war scheme, late war scheme, and then the fleet air arms scheme here. So not real good for showing you how to do all good decal placement for the different versions. They're kind of giving you little bits and pieces of it. Like the fleet air arm one, they just give you one profile shot and tell you, yeah, roundels. You know, the paint scheme isn't being shown at all. It was a camouflage, but that's not being shown, you know, how that camouflage would look. The pre-war one down here, of course, had multiple colors. You know, it was really bright and colorful, and they're really giving you a very minimal amount of information. They do give, you know, some detail painting information on here, but not a lot. This is really poor for helping somebody be able to decal up and paint their aircraft. So that's the instruction sheets. Let's look at the decals. We've got, as I mentioned before, 3 different options. You've got a pre-war version of an OS2U 1, and then you've got late war version with the stars and bars, which was an OS2U 3, and then a Royal Navy version, which was a Kingfisher 1. So we've got some fairly decent decals. They're a little thick. Registration looks pretty good on them. Not a lot of extras, but enough to give you a good impression of the aircraft. So I did do a little bit of research on these decals. The pre-war one, which is designated by this 304, and just the simple star with the red dots in the middle, was an OS2U 1. That was serial number, or bureau number, I should say, for the Navy, 1714. And that was part of VO3, which was assigned to the USS Mississippi. There were 3 aircraft assigned to it. And this was the second section of VO3, which is assigned to the 2nd ship in the 3rd Battleship Division. So the division color was blue, and the 2nd section color is white. And then finally, the fuselage band in a full white cowling was where it represented the section leader. So when you look at the colorations on here, again, you've got this mid-blue is the division color, and then the white, which is the band. These chevrons in a full white cowling is what represented the section leader, 2nd section leader. The colors would change depending on the division and the sections. And then the cowlings, you know, the first aircraft was full cowling and white, then the 2nd aircraft will be the top cowling, and the 3rd aircraft will be the bottom cowling. So I was able to locate a number of photographs of this. This was a well-photographed aircraft pre-war. There's actually some color photographs of it, so you can get to see, you know, how it looked. A few black and whites. The second one, which is represented by what's on the box cover here, I was able to locate a photograph of it, but was not able to locate what squadron this was assigned to. There is the squadron patch or insignia is represented on the tail and by these decals here, but I've not been able to locate exactly which squadron this was. But it appears to be a Pacific squadron, and was able to get some photographs of that. And then the British Kingfisher, the Royal Navy Kingfisher, This FN668 was part of the batch. I believe it was 100 that were shipped to the British. Was not able to locate a photograph of FN668, but I did find FN678. So one of the sister ships, but will give you a pretty good impression of what that aircraft looked like when it was first issued to the British. Also notice that you do get a decal for the dashboard, which is nice too. So take a look at the images that we got of these aircraft, and we'll come back and look at the kit. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got here. So we got some clear pieces here. Looks like a couple of them come off. Grab those. There we go. So we've got nice. These are actually pretty nice and clear, fairly thin. And you have all panel lines on there. They are slightly raised, so not that real heavy framing that you get with some kits. That doesn't look really accurate, but these are pretty nice. Got a cutout for the gun sight or bomb sight. And then here's the additional rear sliding pieces. Again, pretty clear. A lot of plexiglass on this, being an observation aircraft. Certainly want to see what you're looking for. Looks like a landing light right there too, as well too. Okay, let's take a look at our fuselage here. And so here's our, comes with the pontoon, main pontoon already molded onto the body, which is nice. Don't have to try to align that. Got your gun sight built in on there. And you've got a series of raised panel lining, a little bit of representation of the fabric covering. It's not textured, but you do see a little bit of the ribbing on there. Very subtle, not real strong, which is good. It's funny, a lot of companies, do that sometimes to an excess, but the reality is that just because it's fabric covered doesn't mean that it's got all these dips on it. When you actually see real aircraft, you can barely tell that it's actually fabric covered. You have a little bit of riveting around here. You do have some riveting on the pontoon, which I don't think was spot welded. But overall, pretty nice. Not a lot of cockpit interior detail, as you can see. Set that aside. So this one here has got some of the, you got the bombs, bomb halves, wheels for the wheeled version. They are split, unfortunately. So you get a nice seam down the middle of your wheel. You do have the rear observers area with the ring for the defensive gun. The Kingfisher had two 30 calibers, one fixed firing through the prop on the nose, and one in the rear cockpit for the observer gunner. So some pretty nice little pieces, and a little bit of detailing in the rear deck area. Here's the pilot's little seat tub, a little bit of detail on the side panels. Got molded on seat belts and the headrest. Not too bad for a 60s origin kit. You have a little bit of flash here and there on this. So this is, at this point, a 10-year-old mold. So the mold's getting a little bit worn down. And here's your floats, your wing floats. These do have a little bit of rivet detail on it, but it's very, very subtle. You can see on there. Other landing gear parts, little finishing pieces, scarf ring mount. So pretty nice. And here's our wings. Got a one-piece lower with, oh, interesting. I didn't realize that there was a fabric covering on back half of the wing, kind of similar to the Corsair that you saw later on. And here you can see where it's the full length of these flaps / ailerons. And here's the top half pieces. Again, fabric representation on the top half as well. So that's pretty nice. Pretty well done. Got your horizontal stabilizers, one piece, fairly thin though, which is nice. A little complex if you want to cut them and droop them yourself or position them differently. A little bit of a complex way of doing those. Additional struts, I think that's for landing gear. You got your prop, pretty nice little prop, very thin. It does have little lines for the striping. And your engine, just represented with the front lip of the cowling, but it's got some nice detail. That would probably come out really well with a little bit of wash, but pretty detailed for, get that in there correctly, for this type of kit. Very nice. And then finally we got a 30 caliber gun sitting over here. Get that out. Pretty nicely represented. And then finally we got some figures. So this I'm assuming is going to be the rear observer guy. Got another Lieutenant Dan here with his legs missing. I guess that's because you put him through the ring at the end, so I guess his legs probably wouldn't really be seen that much on the finished kit. But he looks really good. Really looks like a naval aviator. And finally here we have, I assume is then the pilot. And he's pretty nice too. Monogram was really good with making really nice crew figures. So, something that seems to have gone away from a lot of kits lately. Yeah, I don't buy or build a lot of modern stuff, of course. But what I have seen, you don't get things like pilots and stands and things like that. So, real unfortunate that it's kind of gone away. I think that's something that modern kits could return to. So that is your Kingfisher. So as I mentioned before, this was originally a 1966 issue from Monogram, and they issued it a few other times, 70, 73. 73 is when they started going to the photograph of the finished kit. So they issued versions of this, 73, 74, then 83. 93, they went back to some artwork, and I think that was kind of like the Don Greer era of box art from Monogram. They kind of updated it and made it part of their special like Model Master series. So they started including some photo etch parts in the kit. They issued it again in 95. And then finally in 99, they did a reissue in their vintage packaging that they did a number of reissues of at that time that was in the boxing that resembled the 66 original boxing. This was also produced by some other, or boxed by other companies. There was a relationship with Bandai for a while, and that came out in 76. There was Monogram's kind of partner in Mexico was Nicomisa. They popped one out in 77. They partnered also with Hasegawa in the 90s, so there was a 1990 issue from Hasegawa. And then, of course, when Revell, merged with or purchased Monogram, then they ended up doing another Mexican reissue with Lodella in 93. And then finally, Revell did their own issue in 2011. So there's a lot of this kit out there. It's a pretty popular kit, seems like, as of recently. Of the naval series of these 48 scale ones, the Kingfisher seems to command the highest price. You can find a lot of the other ones pretty cheaply, unless you're looking at the original issues from the 50s and 60s. But all the reissues, because most of these kits have been reissued, dozens of times, most of those go pretty cheap. But for some reason, the Kingfisher has kind of held a little bit higher steam and pricing as well. So that's about it. If you had experience with this kit or any one of the issues of it, let us know in the comments. If you've still got a built version of this kit, take some pictures of it and send it in. Details of our email are in the channel description. We like to put together occasionally viewer build videos so people can see what these kits look like when they're put together. Some people building them straight out of the box. Some people are doing a lot of extra work and detailing on them and bringing a 60, 70-year-old kit in some cases up to today's look. So if you got that, send it in. That'd be much appreciated. Well, that's it for today. Hope you have yourself a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching.